Let's look over this study page together. It might seem a little overwhelming, so let's take a minute, let's take a breath, and look over the information here together. Every piece of literature, every film, every streaming series, every novel, every short story, every piece of literature ever written contains a theme. So often I see students in high school become confused about theme because study guides sometimes simply show the broad thematic categories. Sometimes those study guides will say Charles Dickens is a story of power. Yes, it is, and that is the broad thematic category. Now, stay with me. Every piece of nonfiction is also about a larger, broad thematic categories. Documentaries about a person who lived before may be based on a broad thematic category such as good versus evil for somebody who committed a crime. Maybe the broad thematic category is about forgiveness or freedom. So that's what this list of broad categories is. This is not a complete list. There could be hundreds of broad categories. But for our purposes, to understand theme, let's use this list. Now, when we move deeper, we look deeper into the meaning of the literature that is written, then we will find a focused theme. And the focused theme will uncover and discover a lesson that the main character learns. If we look at just about anything that we might have seen currently streaming on television, there is at the core of it a lesson that is learned by the character. Even things that we think are really silly or goofy are still built around a common theme that explains what the character learns as a result of the adventures they went through in this story. So what we want to do is think about how do we put into words the lesson that a character learns. And to do that, we're going to look at proverbs. Proverbs are also known as wise sayings. There are hundreds and hundreds of proverbial statements. I'm just looking at a list of these that I see on Wikipedia. There are hundreds and hundreds of proverbs. Let's look at the example of one proverb. Have you heard of the TV series Breaking Bad? It's been very popular for many years. This is the story of Walter White, this character, who is a down-and-out science teacher who has been diagnosed with cancer. He has a baby on the way. He's got a son with some disabilities. He has all kinds of financial problems, and he is looking for a way out of these problems. and he meets up with this character, Jesse, who is trying to make narcotics in his own kooky way. Walter White knows how to do that in a very excellent way, and together the two form an unlikely partnership where they make lots of money by creating drugs. So, in the broad context of this story, let's look at some of the broad themes that we might see in this particular series. And there can be several, so let's look together. There are lots of broad categories in this series. Family. Walter White is motivated to pursue this illegal way of making money because of his family. Justice, as they continue to grapple with law enforcement. Love, Walter White's definition of love. Power, the more money he makes, the more powerful he feels. Coming of age, Jesse, his young partner, is trying to grow up and feels like he's a loser and this is his way of life. On we go with that series. Now, let's look at some of the proverbs that might be able to apply to this. The focused themes. I'm going back to that list that I found on Wikipedia, and I see a drowning man will clutch at a straw, and that means that a desperate person will find any means necessary to relieve the pressure that they are under. A fool and his money are soon parted. All the money, the wonderful money that they make, they lose. Scrolling down, crime does not pay, and so forth. As you can see, any piece of literature may contain multiple themes, multiple lessons. Your job as a scholar, as one who studies literature, is to look for those deeper meanings, those themes, and explore those in your writing, your research, your analysis of that literature. Within this study page, I've showed you a broad theme, family, justice. These are large, broad categories, and proverbs that might be included in a focused view of that broad theme. I've given you a summary of what that proverb means. And then I've given you a narrative passage that might illustrate the broad theme, the focused proverb, and that summary in a very short little idea of a story. I'd like you to look these over and make sure you are familiar with these broad categories, the proverbs that might go with each, and the narrative idea that I provided. When you look at a proverb, if you aren't sure exactly what that proverb means, then I suggest going to AI, ChatGPT, or another type of AI resource and asking it what this proverb means. I've come over to ChatGPT and I asked it to explain what that proverb means. The thing I like about ChatGPT is that if I don't understand it from this, I can keep asking and it will explain until I understand. When you have studied this page and you feel like you have a clear foundation for understanding broad theme, or what we would call a broad thematic context, and you understand how you can move beyond that to the deeper meanings of literature in the focused themes and apply a proverb to that narrow, focused theme. Then you'll be ready to move on to the assignment for this particular concept, which is the foundation for this course.